Hey, good morning, Michael. Good morning, John. Looking down at us from your throne.
Good morning, everyone.
Sitting in the Denver airport.
Oh. Oh, you're in the airport? Oh, cool. Yeah, we did trick or treat last night, and I've been down with the flu like all week. I've missed two things this week that I really wanted to go to, and I managed to sit out and give out candy, but I noticed it's like it was colder than normally it's been. I was talking about to people like, yeah, I grew up in Seattle. You had to wear a heavy coat like over your costume, and it just sucked. Here I'm Superman with a ski jacket. So, John, what you doing? You're traveling?
Yeah, coming home from visiting my mom. So
Oh, cool. That's good. All right, well, I want to give a few more minutes, see if we get a few more people. Attendance has been down this year. Not sure what I can do to rectify that, but we'll try to have a decent sized crowd for you there, Jonathan, because I know this is an interesting topic. So, and Michael, I heard they canceled they rescheduled the past master's degree.
They did. I was wondering if you heard about that or
Yeah.
not.
So who else? I wonder who else did it, because I wasn't there, but maybe
Yeah,
the
I heard the name Tom. Somebody
Tom
that
Varner. Oh, well, if he
one
was
had
in the
had one
East,
of the main parts.
there's three parts you can't do without, and the other ones are virtually like a guy has one line, and you just have to sit there. Yeah, it really, you could fill in with a lot of the other parts. I'll just tell you, just stand up and say, "Happy to assist you, worshipful," when the time comes, and that's all you got to do. It's very, it's very. A lot of the parts are, "Hey, you do this," but there's three that are critical, and yeah, if one of those three aren't there, and really two of them you can learn, it's not that hard. The main guy, though, I've done the right worshipful master. That's a big part. And if Tom Varner was that, then I understand why they had to cancel. So
Yeah,
it
that
wasn't just
man.
because of me. I'd have felt really bad if it, but honestly, that's we really should. I mean, honestly, that's something like most guys should learn. You know what I mean? Like the two speaker parts. It's one of those things. It's kind of like in the Blue Lodge. It's like you need
Yeah,
people to learn the ruffians and the fellowcrafts. Just
yeah, absolutely.
how
I think you should tell me more about that. Talk about that a little bit, would you?
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna. I said too much already.
Yeah. Okay, Kubiachi. Yeah.
Let me do my formal thing. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the unstated meeting of Virginia Research Lodge on November the 1st, 2025. My name is Chris Douglas. I'm the worshipful master of Virginia Research Lodge this year. I'm coming to you from Virginia Beach, and I'm glad y'all could join us here on YouTube at some point in the far future when I get around to uploading this. So if you're watching me later, please like and subscribe. I just uploaded, I think, 6 videos in the last week, and that was almost all of them from 20. I was way behind. There's several months worth of Zooms that I hadn't uploaded to YouTube, but they're all up there now. And I wanted to say real quick, let me do this. Not there. I will put in the chat the our usual links, and one of them is changed. First one is our Facebook page. I think everybody here is on Facebook with me. The second one is our website, which has changed. The next is our YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this later on in the future. And then my email, and if you want to get a hold of me, but I think everybody here has already got all that. But I did want to make a point, if I can open the right window. All right, let's see. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, and I'm going to share. Oh, Jonathan, are you going to need to share a screen? Are you going to have a presentation? Okay.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, let me go and add you. Advanced. All. It's kind of funny. It's either like I can the only one who can share or everybody can share. That's just how Zoom is set up. Maybe on this version I have, that's how it's set up. But it seems to work well. But I'm going to go ahead and share. Let's see that. And we're going to do screen. That one. Let me know if you can see that. Can y'all see the screen?
Not yet.
No. Okay. I thought I did that. Share. Oh, I clicked. Hang on a second.
Yep. Okay. Can now.
Let's see that one and share. I just want to share this real quick.
Cherry baby.
No, see, it's not like, there we go. Can y'all see that? Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, this is the new Lodge website. I'm going to show it real quick. There's a lot to it, and that's researchlodge.com, not .org, .com. The old website is down, and we're using, where'd you go? We are now have a researchlodge.com is the new website, is hosting in Azure. It's no longer in SharePoint. All of the research papers are up there. All of the calendars, all of the research lodges are up there. All of the unstated meetings are now cataloged on the website with links to YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and you can look at the playlist, or you can just go to our website, and from there you can do a search for a previous unstated meeting. If you're looking for a video about a specific content, you can do a search for that there, which is much more efficient than YouTube, because you're looking at YouTube. For some reason, you can't search by one person and one thing. It gives you everybody everywhere. It's like it seem if you're on somebody's channel and you do a search, it just seems to just not work real well. The search. Mine works better. I wrote it. It works. So you can not only search the papers themselves, and that's an improvement. If any of y'all ever been to the old one, you guys and everybody out there in YouTube land watching me, if you've ever been to the old website, I had a search for about a couple of years, and it worked, and then it didn't work, and it worked, and it didn't work, and it gave like 100 hits, like you put in George Washington, right? And almost every paper mentions him, sort of. It just seems like you get so many hits, it's not useful. So I've changed it so when you do a search, it's like, if it's in the title, then if it's in the keywords, then if it's in the summary, and then if it's in the body of the text. So if you're looking for a specific paper about someone, starting at the top, your most likely hits are, it's going to be the title of the paper or the keywords that tell you what you're looking for, and then the summary itself, and then you get into so if you're looking for light, every paper is going to have light, but that's all going to be filtered, down in the main body. So it's a much more efficient search engine. I hope it will be useful, and I'm going to be promoting that a lot. So I'm really excited. That took a couple months to get live. So we have a new website.
Good job, Worshipful. You've been busy.
Yes, and now that's done, I can focus on the getting our store up and running, hopefully. All right, so good to have everybody here. I'm going to go and introduce Jonathan, and he can tell it. He's a member of Yorktown Lodge. I'll leave it to him. If you want to make any of your pedigree or resume you want on list, feel free. Otherwise, you can just get started with your talk, Jonathan.
Yep. So good morning, everyone. I am a member of Yorktown Lodge, the junior warden there, soon to be senior warden if elected. I'm also a member of Warwick 336, and I'm the junior deacon there, and if elected, senior deacon next year. Also a member of the Valley of Newport News for the Scottish Rite. And so I'll just keep it at that. So I am going to share my screen now. And so I'm very excited to talk about this topic. I actually learned that you could probably write a book, a whole entire book on on all of this stuff that happened, and how some of these guys kind of they cross paths and stuff. So throughout the presentation, everyone is going to be in some type of chronological order, with the exception of one person, and you'll see why. So I also trimmed this down a little bit for two reasons. One, I didn't want to give too not give too much, but I didn't want to kind of board everyone. And there I did kind of remove. I just picked the top tier guys that were kind of like, all right, we'll talk about them. But there's plenty of lots of brothers that were involved with these revolutions and uprisings and stuff like that. I did want to mention, and I did this. I meant to take this out, but I did filter some of the stuff because there is a lot of political ideologies in it, and as you know, we don't really discuss politics in Masonry, but there are some things that some of us may or may not agree with, including myself. So I just a little disclaimer there, to try to keep everything on the level. So anyway, moving on, so the Masonic movement in Latin America was very, very instrumental because it kind of helped. Oops, did I lose can you still see no, you probably can't.
Yeah, still see you. You're good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so the struggle for independence in Latin America really was fueled by lots of Masons, and a lot of the lessons that they learned from Masonry. And it wasn't just the Spanish; there were also the French and other countries. So this is it was very interesting to me to see some of this. Throughout history, Masonic influence led to the fight against tyranny. We all know that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And one of the things that we're taught, especially in the Scottish Rite, talks a lot about being free and not living life in bondage and stuff like that. During the fight for independence in the United States, we had many key figures that were instrumental. And you're going to see a lot of key figures in these revolutions that were instrumental. The Philippines, they had Joseph Rizal, among others. France had Lafayette and the ideas of Voltaire. So here, many of the liberators came from South America, and the Caribbeans were inspired by the influence of their brethren, which is why I kind of try to keep them in a sequential order. During these acts of liberty and peace and harmony, they weren't, peace and harmony wasn't always at the forefront, is what I'm trying to say here. Some guys bumped heads with each other because their beliefs did not kind of coincide, and there were some moves that kind of double crossed some, or it's no different than when during the Revolutionary War, George Washington put a bounty on Benedict Arnold because of him basically switching sides during the middle of the Revolutionary War. So we'll see some stuff like that here as well. So we're going to start with Cuba. One of the most interesting things I learned about Cuba was, first of all, the flag is designed by Cuban Masons that were exiled in New York. The equilateral triangle it represents equality, liberty, and fraternity, faith, and God. The five-pointed star is an emblem of fellowship and guidance. The three blue stripes were for the three colonial divisions, military divisions. The two white stripes were purity and justice, and red, of course, is bloodshed. However, the three blue were also based on the symbolic lodge and the first 3 degrees. So we're going to start with Carlos Manuel de Cepares. He's a leader of the Cuban independence movement and the first president of Cuba in arms, which is different what they got now. But he was initiated a Mason while he was studying law in Spain. And he was very involved with revolutionary activities during this time. He was an active member and used the Masonic Lodge to organize and coordinate revolutionary activities in Cuba. He also ordered the release of all slaves, and he started with his own. He did come from a privileged background, so one of the first things he did was he did free slaves. So this guy was very gun-ho about his cause. His second child, Oscar, was executed by a Spanish firing squad. The Spaniards actually wanted to exchange his son Oscar's life if Carlos were to resign as president of the Republic of Cuba at arms. And he said no. His answer was basically, Oscar's not my only son, because every Cuban who had died for the revolution he started was also his son. So that kind of shows the dedication and willingness. I when I was reading that, it took me back because I was like, wow, like his own kid, he just was like, nope. So we'll move on to Jose Martin. One of his famous quotes is, "Liberty is the right of every man to be honest, to think and speak without hypocrisy." Martin was also a lawyer. He was a writer, an organizer, and organized that unified the movement for Cuban independence. He was exiled from Cuba to Spain in 1879. There's a lot of during this time there was a lot of influence that he received from Masonry, which kind of led to how everything would move forward from there. He dedicated his life to freeing Cuba from the Spanish rule and establishing a multiracial, democratic republic. He's considered a universal Mason by the Inter-American Masonic Conference, who they meet every year still, for promoting the values of Freemasonry. He wrote about freedom throughout the world and he was published in dozens of newspapers. Anywhere he went, he wrote something, and he was very well traveled. Everywhere he went, he published something, and he talked about freedom, and that's why he was kind of very well known throughout. He had an influential essay in 1891, Nuestra America, which translates to Our America, and it's the cornerstone of his political thought. In it, he argued that Latin American nations are to reject both European and U.S. cultural and political influence to define their own unique identity and system of government. He died in battle May 19, 1895, against Spanish troops. Battle of Dos Rios, which is the Battle of Two Rivers. Haiti. Now, Haiti also very, very interesting. They kind of, I was very taken back by a lot of stuff that I learned here from the Haitian Revolution, and some of the things that kind of came from it. Toussaint, I have issues saying his name. Sorry, Louverture. He was actually born a slave in a French colony, Santo Domingo, which is now known as Haiti. He was the most prominent leader of the Haitian Revolution and is described as a vowed Freemason. One of the things I didn't mention here was he also was very conflicted with, not very conflicted, but as we know, voodoo was one of the main religious practices in Haiti. Voodoo comes from Africa, and but he was also very Catholic. So those two worlds kind of clash, and not to mention you throw Freemasonry in there, that kind of really changes things up. But he did use a lot of Masonic symbols, and you'll see some of that stuff in voodoo, and it was incorporated because of his association with that. Well, not just his, but him being a principal figure. Um, he was also instrumental in writing the Constitution. So the Haitian Constitution is going to have a lot of Masonic principles there. It all talks about life, liberty, and and being free. He was also part. He was His arrest was partially because of Jean Jacques the Synonymous, who is also a Freemason. We'll talk about him in just a little bit, but yeah, Jean Jacques reported his failure to stop a rebel leader to the French, and he was taken away. So that kind of ended that. He died in prison 7 April 1803 at the age of 59. Some of the suggestions is that he died from exhaustion, and they basically weren't taking care of him in jail. They just kind of, anytime he would make a request, they kind of just let it. They didn't pay him any attention. So very interesting guy. I did have a note here for him, and I can't remember what I apologize. They'll probably come back later. But Jean Jacques is another revolutionary leader, and he's actually the first ruler of Haiti under the 1805 Constitution. He became an emperor. A lot of the Haitian constitution and the way of doing stuff kind of comes from the French, and just like America, some of our way of doing laws and things like that came from the British. So you'll see a lot of French influence there. He took command and led the revolutionaries to a decisive victory, ending the French rule and declaring Haiti's independence on January 1st, 1804. He led the indigenous army to a decisive victory over the French at the Battle of Verteltis. I can't read French, I'm sorry, in November 1803. And it was the last major battle. So that's basically their version of the Battle of Yorktown. So that pretty much. And Haiti, what I found interesting about Haiti and a lot of these other countries is that, and just like America, some of these gentlemen were conflicted because they had European descendant, they had European lifestyles and stuff like that, but they just wanted to be free, and there was just stuff there that they were not happy about. And the independence of Haiti kind of, I mean, we can sit here for hours and talk about it. It kind of, just like the French, they were freed, and then there was multiple revolutions that occurred, and not, there's still some instability there as we speak. He unfortunately was assassinated north of the capital city at Port-au-Prince on 17 October 1806 on his way to fight the rebels. So there was, like I was just mentioning, there was still more fighting going on, and the national anthem is actually named in his honor. So pretty cool there. Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico is so the Puerto Rican flag, just like the Cuban flag, was also designed in Cuba. I'm sorry, in New York, by people who were just by the Puerto Rican independentalists who at the time were trying to break away from the Spanish crown. And so Ramon Emeterio Bentes he's a medical doc. He was a medical doctor, abolitionist, and led the fight for the independence movement. Freemason's philosophical views and deep influence in his political and social activism is kind of what got him going. His father was also a Mason, so I found that to be very interesting because this is like one of the first times that and I'm not sure, maybe there are other guys here that fall under that category, but this is the first time that I saw that somebody had actually their dad was also a Mason, which something we kind of see right now. So his charitable deeds for the people in need is what gave him the name of El Padre de los Pobres, which is the father of the poor. So I I would assume that some of those deeds were inspired by some of the Masonic influences as to, we talk about being charitable and giving to people. Another interesting thing here is that there's a lodge in Puerto Rico meets in the building where he was born, and the name of the lodge is Logia Cuna de Ventanes, which is the Cradle Ventanes Cradle Masonic Lodge. There was an epidemic and it was spreading in 1856. And he was one of the first 5 doctors that would take care of 24,000 residents, along with Dr. Jose Francisco Barbosa, who's also a Mason. I had to cut him off because he very interesting fellow as well, but I was trying to keep the presentation short, so I didn't want to. But he's also a very interesting individual. He also organized El Grito de Lares, the cry of Lares, also referred to the Lares Revolt or the Lares Revolution. And it was a short revolt against the Spanish rule in Puerto Rico. During the 1860s, the government of Spain was involved in several conflicts across Latin America, and Puerto Rico and Cuba also suffered severe economic crisis because of the increasing tariffs and taxes imposed on by the Spanish on imported and exported goods, which, if you think about it, sounds kind of familiar and what led to the Boston Tea Party. So we can kind of see some lessons learned there and some influences, not just Masonic, but from previous revolutions. Ignacio Maria de Hostos, he was educator, lawyer, philosopher who advocated for Puerto Rico's liberation from Spain and the creation of a union of Antilles Island. He promoted his ideas in the United States, France, Colombia, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and the Danish colony of St. Thomas, which is now the U.S. Virgin Islands. He's known as El Gran Ciudadano de las Americas, the great citizen of America, because you're going to see he actually did a lot throughout. He just didn't stay in Puerto Rico. He actually went out in Peru. He set up the educational system and spoke against harsh treatment given to Chinese who lived there. In Chile, he taught at the University of Chile and gave a speech titled "The Scientific Education of Women," in which he advocated to permit women to enroll in colleges. In the Dominican Republic, he introduced advanced teaching methods that they were kind of opposed by the local Catholic Church, as Hostos opposed any sort of religious instruction in the education process. He died in Santo Domingo, and he was buried in the National Pantheon, located in the colonial district of that city. And his final wish is that when Puerto Rico is completely independent, he will like his remains to be returned. Um, Also, just wanted to mention with Dr. Bentanes is that his ashes were he died in France, and his ashes were moved to Puerto Rico in 1920, and they set up a nice memorial there for him. So I found it interesting. I knew about Hosso's wish of not being returned back to Puerto Rico until it was completely independent. But it just it stands out very much for me. Now the Dominican Republic was actually fighting for its independence, but not against Spain or France. It was actually fighting against Haiti. So it was trying to free itself from Haiti, which very interesting. Um, Thomas Bobadilla, sorry. He's another prominent 19th century Dominican figure. There were many, again, I'm sorry, but I had to kind of condense this. He served as president of the Senate. He was an intellectual politician, and he held several positions under the Spanish government before becoming involved in the short-lived Republic of Spanish Haiti in 1821. He pushed for French uh, protectorate, which led to a coup d'etat by the liberal Trinitarios. He also helped draft the 1844 Constitution, which gave President Pedro Santana he was part of this slide deck, but I also removed them. He was thought to be a Mason. There's some conflict with that. It goes back and forth. So since I wasn't sure, I was like, let's keep it safe and take him out. But it gave him extraordinary powers to deal with the potential threats and decisions to establish a dictatorship. In 1816, he negotiated a peace treaty between the newly independent Dominican Republic and Haiti. He died in exile in Haiti. So he fought against the Haitians, and he died in Haiti. So I found that to be not funny, but it was ironic. That's the word I was looking for. I found that to be an ironic thing. One of So Thomas was very he's like I mentioned before, he was one of these guys that was very aligned with a lot of the French stuff and French ideas, sorry. And he just I guess my guess is he returned back to Haiti because Haiti was very still French dominated and at that time, and there were still a lot of those principles that he kind of was familiar with. Juan Pablo Duarte. So the reason this is the only guy that you'll see a picture of during the presentation. The reason for that is because growing up, we had neighbors and this guy's picture was up, and I always wonder like, why is his picture up? And I asked the family if he was related to them, and he wasn't. So when I was doing the research and I saw his picture, I was very intrigued by it. He's known as the leader of the nationalist group La Trinitaria in the revolution against Haiti. This society had close ties to Freemasonry, so some of the things that they met in Masonic lodges and stuff like that. He is listed as the founding father of the Dominican Republic and is strongly associated with the revolutionary and political movement. He is inspired by Masonry and was introduced to the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. unfortunately also died in exile. His vision and sacrifice made him a political martyr and national hero. His remains were brought back to the Dominican Republic, and they're there with the other their founding fathers in the altar of nation. So South America, it was easier to put all of these countries together because you're going to see this gets very interesting here because you're going to see a lot of these political and revolutionaries get together, and some of them work together, some of them don't work too well together, or they start off well and they don't end up too friendly at the end. Again, these are all Masons. Francisco de Miralda, he was Venezuela's guy. He's considered one of the earliest freedom fighters. He laid the groundwork for the revolutionary ideas in Latin America. Some of his ideas were a single unification of Spanish American empire. He envisioned an independent empire stretching from the Mississippi River to Cape Horn. He also wanted a new national identity. He invented the name Colombianos or American Colombianos, which is Colombians, and a constitutional monarchy. Some of his proposals, so constitutional monarchy is not something that any of the Spanish crown wanted anything to do with, and we'll see a little bit more about that later on. But his work involved international diplomacy to secure support for his cause, as seen in his efforts to gain financial and military aid from the British. And that's where he was actually made a Mason, was in London. And he founded the lodge, the Great American Reunion was a lodge that he created. So, and as, not sure, but as Spain, Britain, France, all these countries had some discontent with each other. So part of me wonders if he leveraged that to kind of say, hey, and I know you don't like the Spaniards. Would you like to help me? And sort of like what was done with the French and American, the involvement of the French with the American Revolution. He died in prison after Bolivar deemed him and some of his actions as treasonous. Now, and just to go, and just a little spoiler alert here, Bolivar is also a Mason, and we'll see that later on. Jose de San Martin, Argentina, Chile, and Peru. This guy is one of my favorite guys. He went hard in the paint, like we said, you used to say back in the days when I was growing up. He was a prominent military leader and statesman. He played a critical role in freeing Argentina, Chile, and Peru from Spanish rule. He was the leader of Lutaro Lodge, a secretive organization with goals similar to Freemasonry, dedicated to achieving a complete liberty for South America. He was initiated in Lodge of Rational Knights in 1811. He was part of several Spanish campaigns in North Africa, fighting against the Moors. So at this point, he is fighting for the Spaniards, and something happens and he just switches. So in Argentina, he offered his military service to the newly independent United Province of South America in 1812 and was instrumental in securing its independence. He then went down to Chile, and he led the crossing of the Andes, which I read a little bit about this, and I mean, I can't imagine in 1817 crossing the Andes. I mean, not without the technology we have now. It's just amazing that he did that. And he basically freed Chile from Spanish rule, achieving a victory at the Battle of Chacabuco in 1817 and the Battle of Maipú in 1818. Then he went down to Peru, and in Peru, after freeing Chile, he sailed to attack the Spanish stronghold of Lima, the capital of Peru. And he was appointed protector of Peru in 1821 after its independence was declared. He met with Simón Bolívar in 1822 to discuss future independent movement. Now, this was, I kind of, when I was reading about this, I can kind of see this unfolding in my head because he unexpectedly resigned his command and leaving the task of fully liberating Peru to Bolivar. He retreated from public life and he exiled himself to Europe in 1824, died in France 1850. There's no real reason given why this would happen, but I believe, I mean, he was fighting since 1791, and here we are, 1822, and he's still fighting. And these 3 campaigns that he led, I mean, they were kind of back to back. So I think he was just tired and he just wanted to get a break. So he died in France, exiled himself. I think he exiled himself because he pretty much knew that Bolivar was not happy with him. Dom Pedro I from Brazil, another very interesting gentleman here. He is in Brazil and Portugal. He's known as the Liberator or the Soldier King. He was initiated into Freemasonry August of 1822, shortly before declaring Brazil's independence, September 7th, September 7th, 1822. I didn't sleep well last night, so guys, pardon me. Freemasonry was instrumental in shaping Brazil's new identity as a sovereign nation. Pedro I was influenced by his Masonic brothers to take a decisive step. Here's the kicker. Pedro was sent there, Don Pedro was sent there by his father, who was actually the king. He sent them to Brazil as a regent. There was a mutiny going on, and he said, hey, go down there and, kind of take care of stuff for me. Pedro was never really formally trained to be a prince. He went to school in France, which I believe was one of the reasons why he was a bit of an outlier here from the rest of his family. He was founder and the first ruler of the Empire of Brazil from 1822 to 1831 under the name of Pedro the First, or and for the king as king of Portugal in 1826 under Pedro the Fourth. He was a supporter of liberalism and of constitutional representative monarchy, as well as he read the ideas of the Enlightenment thinkers. This was a complete opposite of his father, who believed in absolute monarchy and was not happy with his son at all. He presided over lodges during the independence movement. However, he suspended the activities of the Grand Orient of Brazil due to the political rivalries between the Masonic fractions. He also was Brazil's Grand Master while he was emperor. During Brazil's bicentennial celebration in 2022, they have his embalmed heart. It was received with military honors to Brazil, and it was publicly displayed. After they were done, they sent it back to Portugal, where it's currently housed at. Very interesting. Now, Simon Bolivar, as you can see, is the one that I was mentioning is kind of out of order here because he was actually born in 1783. Um, and he actually gets two slides. So he's known as the Liberator. Bolivar was a key figure in Latin America's independent movements. He believed in democratic principles and importance of Enlightenment ideas in shaping new nations. Now, there are some contradictions here with his belief in democratic principles, and we'll probably catch those as we go on. He was initiated into Masonry in 1803 in Spain and was raised a Master Mason in 1806 at Mother of St. Andrew Scotland Lodge in Paris. His Masonic affiliation and ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity played a significant role in the inspiring of the Latin American independence movement. Despite his strong ties to the organization, he outlawed secret societies, including Freemasonry, which we all know here that it's not a secret society, in Venezuela, November 8th, 1828. So that was very interesting. We started founding the Grand Colombia, a federation that included territories of modern-day Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama. And he served as the first president. Upper Peru is actually was renamed Bolivia in his honor. He was a brilliant military strategist who fought over 200 battles against the Spanish Empire. He had victories that led to the creation of New Granada, present-day Colombia. He also led a battle that was also another decisive battle in Peru in 1824. And as I mentioned before, Upper Peru was renamed Bolivia in his honor. In the English-speaking world, Bolivar is also known as the Latin America's George Washington. In December 1830, at the age of 40, he died from tuberculosis. There were some speculations that there was some foul play with that, but of course, that's never been proven either. So in summary, I just want to say that Latin America was shaped by the principles and teachings of leaders who were inspired by Freemasonry. While some ideas crashed with others, the use of the Masonic meeting place matched those of our founding fathers who met at taverns to discuss ideas of freedom and equality. Throughout this whole research, what I noticed was that a lot of things you can kind of see things go and say, I can recognize that from our independence here, or from the story of the American Revolution. So I found that to be very interesting. And again, there's just so many people that I had to cut out just for the sake of time, and I just didn't want to make this too long. So that is all I have.
Let me unmute. Yeah, Jonathan, really good. I really enjoyed it. A lot of information there. A lot of information. Those very well researched. I appreciate it. Any questions or comments from the group? You need to unmute, Fen.
There we go. Hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan. Agreed. That was great stuff. Hey, just out of curiosity, what is your lineage? Are you central, from Latin America or South America? Is that where this interest came from?
Yeah, I'm actually from. I was born in Puerto Rico. I was raised in New York, so I have like we say, a New York state of mind. But but I actually had, so I wanted to be fair because I started with the Puerto Ricans and I started pulling up so many guys and I was like, wow, this is just overwhelming and a lot of information. But I wanted to be fair and I wanted to also kind of dive into everyone else because it was an opportunity for me to learn a lot about the South American Revolution, which I've truly learned a lot.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's a very large undertaking. Absolutely.
So, having absorbed all of this information, did you notice any similarities or any patterns or anything you can kind of say that came out of all of that? They all seem to do this, and Masonry influenced that.
Yeah, so they all seem to have been inspired by France, one way or another.
Okay.
I mean, some of the guys were educated in France. Some of the guys were initiated or did some type of Masonic work in France. And a lot of them just read. And as we know, France has gone through many, they went through a lot of revolutions. They got rid of a king, added a, and so they went back and forth. So I think that's the one thing that I see that kind of brings them all together is that consistent.
France had an influence. Interesting. Very good. That because for me, that's that's what really kind of takes a paper like to the next level is like when you can share all this information, which is great, but then when you draw your own conclusions and throw them in there too, to share, it's like this is what I learned after pulling that all together. But that was a very good presentation. I really like that. Yeah, there's a lot of information out there. I did a paper on the Grand Lodges of France because I wanted to do something on, well, let me do something on how many Grand Lodges there are in the world, right? Figure there's 200 of us roughly, but there's so much information. So you're like, how do I whittle it down? And I said, I'll just pick one country, and I just picked France. And I was able to write a huge paper on 300 years of French masonry, and that was more than enough. I mean, it was big for even one paper, and it was just one country. But the idea with France of like, well, this comes into play for a while, and then this group breaks off and does this, and then this many lodges say, no, you're doing it wrong, and they break off and become another group, and then they come back together, and then some of it's Scottish Rite, and some of it's more like what we think of as Grand Lodges, and sometimes they're both. And at the present in France, there is at least 6 or 7 what we consider rites in France, and they're not just in France, but in Europe as a whole. And a rite is not a Grand Lodge. A rite is like the Swedish Rite, the Scottish Rite, the Reformed Scottish Rite, what we consider the York Rite, which is the English version of Masonry. All of these different rites have a slightly different way of interpreting Masonry. Some you don't have to believe in God. Some you can believe in a pantheon of gods. Some allow women, some don't. Some say you can get involved in politics, some don't. So the rites are really what define us as Masons, not what Grand Lodge would belong to. But the really neat thing is in France, and they all have their own rituals too, to some extent, right? There are Grand Lodges in France that say, these are the 6 different rites you can practice. And every lodge can decide, well, we're going to be Reformed Scottish Rite. Well, we're going to be York Rite. Well, we're going to be French Romantic Rite, whatever it is. There's all these, and you could go from what, now us, we're in Virginia, most of us. In fact, everybody, I think, but Rick is in Virginia. We can go to any lodge in Virginia, and it's all York Rite Masonry. It's all Virginia ritual. It's exactly the same. But if you're in France, you're allowed to visit another lodge under the Grand Orient of France or the National Grand Lodge of France, whatever one you're in. You're all in the same Grand Lodge, but their ritual might be totally different, and their rites might be totally different, which just blows me away. It's like, to us, we'd be like, what is going on here? Is this a National Grand Lodge France Lodge or not? You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm just curious how I'd be interested to learn for myself, maybe where you want to look into it, is what different rites are practiced in South America.
Yeah.
And how they are.
Well, I know that a lot of the including Puerto Rico, a lot of the ritual that they use is actually a Scottish Rite ritual.
Mhm.
The first time I went to lodge in Puerto Rico, they're opening lodge, and I said that looks familiar, but not
Yeah.
Blue Lodge. That looks, and then I saw how it was all kind of situated, and I said, oh. And of course the red aprons kind of gave that away as well.
Yep.
But yeah, it I one of the people that was excluded was I found it weird, but everywhere I went and everywhere I looked regarding this person, they mentioned their affiliation with Freemason was a woman. And I was like,
Mhm.
huh. And I was like, well, how did that happen? You know? And of course, I didn't want to dive too deep in it because you start digging into these things and you end up in wormholes
Yep.
and you just lose track and you're not, now I'm rambling for 2 hours about something and
Yep.
not really covering the topic. But yeah, I appreciate everyone. I really, I feel bad because there's so much more that I could have said about every individual. I could have did a presentation on one alone, I mean, Simon Bolivar just alone.
Absolutely. He deserves his own.
Yeah, I mean, I could have just went on, but I wanted to keep the crowd and I didn't want to lose them, so I
Right.
decided.
Oh no, you gave us a good insight into all of it. Well, it's like if you were going to say, if someone said, I want to give a talk on famous Masons in America. Great. I'm going to read off 300 names for 15 minutes. No, you're not going to. Well, Yogi Bear. Red Skelton, and these are all entertainers. Blah 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 blah. John Wayne. Blah blah blah. All you can do is read their names. If there's a plenty of information, but if you're given a talk, you have to drill down and focus on something and give a little time to each one. If all you're doing is reading off dates or names, yeah, it's not interesting you might read it, but if you're presented to a group, they're not going to get it. And that paper I talked about with France, yeah, there's a lot of dates in there, but I have to include the dates. But it's sort of like you have to keep it interesting to people who sit there and pay attention. If I publish a book and you want to read it, you might read it with all the dates. Like, oh, that's cool. You'll read down the list. But to give a paper where people are listening to you read it, you got to change. You got to make it more of a story that you're telling instead of just dry. I'm just reading from the page. Like I've got. I just want to show this off. If someone gave it to me, this is the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry that a brother gave to me. If I can get it to show, it probably won't show with me in it. Anyway, right here. I just want to. I want y'all to see this background. Nope. One sec. Come on. Done. Okay, there. That's it. This is my friend of mine gave me this book that he got from me, the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Now I could open this and read to you. All right. It was indeed on his first inception an attempt to. Yeah, I could read you this, but it's literally an encyclopedia. No, it'd be boring. You would not enjoy it. So here, let me. Yeah. There you go. We'll leave that the rest of the day. But it was neat. My friend gave it to me because he didn't have a chance to read it. It's a good reference book to have. But you don't want to, you want to keep your audience inspired. I could probably pick an article out of here and expand on it and write a paper and tell a narrative that's interesting, and you'd enjoy it. But just to read this to you, we have to keep that in mind when we're presenting. But I really like this. So how many papers have you presented, Jonathan? I know you took a while to come back to me with one.
Yeah, I've actually done a couple of presentations in Lodge. Some of them are only suited for tile environments.
Yes.
But I've done a couple.
Well, good.
I did one about the Tyler and I did one about the Rough Ashler, and I did another one that escapes my mind.
Okay, so you're doing it. Yeah, I first started picking on Jonathan like I think 2-3 years ago. I was like, hey, you gonna come give a paper? You gonna come give a paper? Because he was a regular attendee here. But I'm good. I really like this. I think you're coming along, and this is what we want to do: encourage Masons, younger Masons, newer. I'd say younger, but Michael, newer fresher Masons, not necessarily younger, but, to get involved into education. And the best way to learn about education is to write a paper.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to get started, but once you do, you get that bug and you got to keep churning stuff out. So if we want to increase Masonic education, we have to encourage brothers like Jonathan here to get in there. Just write a paper already. Because once you write one, you'll get going on. You'll go on your own. So that's something we, as a research lodge, need to be doing. That's why I want to put you on the spot. But that's exactly what we're looking for, Jonathan. Is inspiring younger Masons like yourself to dig in and start doing education, because us old guys aren't going to be around forever.
Right. I've also done a couple at Scottish Rite, which
excellent.
I actually enjoy those a lot as well, because they'll say, hey, we're meeting in the Lodge of Perfection, and I'll just pick a degree, and then when you pick a degree, then you just take a little section of that degree, and you just because I was just like, wow, this is interesting.
Good. That's outstanding.
Well, I just want to thank you, Chris, for inviting me. I want to thank everyone for your attention. I am dressed, even though typically I dress in a shirt and tie for lodge. I have a funeral I have to go to.
Oh, okay.
So I will, if you don't mind, I'd like to excuse myself.
Well, certainly. We'll wrap it up here. Yeah, I was hoping you didn't dress up just for this, because we're we're collared shirts. Any more questions for Jonathan? But we'll go ahead and wrap up here.
Just thank you very much. That was
right.
very, very informative and enjoying and good to know. Good stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to remind, I'll just go and wrap it up then, Jonathan, then. So our next unstated will be in January, because of November. Obviously, with Grand Lodge, and then the annuals in December, and we'll have our annual on December
18th. Is that right?
13th.
Yeah.
It's always got to be listed 14 on the list. But anyway, we're not going to have another unstated until January. But look forward to seeing you all at one of the various things around here soon. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And y'all have a great day.